Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Thundorphin and I'll be playing through Sonic CD, aiming to collect the time stones and get the good ending. Sonic CD was originally released on Sega CD in 1993 after Sonic the Hedgehog in 1991 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in 1992. I'm playing the Steam version released in 2012. The game is also included in Sonic Origins released in 2022, but I've already got Sonic 1, 2, 3 Knuckles and CD. I don't feel the need to buy Origins. The original release in Japan and Sega of America had their own separate soundtracks as well, which had different musical philosophies. The main feature I appreciate in this version is the ability to switch between the Japanese and American soundtracks. It was something I couldn't do in the Gems collection, which only had the USA soundtrack, when I preferred the Japanese overall, and I'll be using the Japanese today. So what's happening is Sonic is travelling to Little Planet, a celestial body which appears over Never Lake for 1 month every year, covered by large land masses, green in colour, with various bodies of water similar to Earth, with its own gravitational field, ignoring the fact the planet is inside another planet at the moment. The greatest treasures are the time stones, capable of time travel and time manipulation. What we see here is that Dr. Robotnik has taken possession of the planet, turned it into a fortress and chained it to a mountain with the intent of stealing the time stones. The objective of this game is to free the planet from Robotnik's control and prevent the theft of the time stones by travelling to the planet via the chains, which lands us in Palmtree Panic, the Green Hill variant of the game. The game contains 3 stages containing 3 acts. The purpose is not to get to the end of the stage in record time, but I'll elaborate soon. So the first impression is the typical running to the end, but we're about to approach time warp sign soon. So if all we do is race to the end of the act, this is what will happen in the future. So we've just travelled to the future and everything is dystopian, polluted and dead, with an increase of enemies. This is due to Robotnik's influence, and we need to find the cause of this future. To do this, we need to travel back to time to change the future. And we need to do this for each act unless we can get the 7 time stones. And we have to retain momentum until the time warp to the past sequence takes us back to the present. We've found another past sign. And we have to retain momentum until we can go back to the past. So we've come back to a prehistoric time period. And there are also enemies here, so meaning that logically the cause of the bad future is here. And we destroyed a robot transporter capable of warping robots to different timelines. and we're assured that the future at the end is a good one. Now here, we have to destroy all 6 UFOs before time runs out. The obstacles do not pose any threat of instantly failing, but we get penalised time for touching water. A UFO appears if the timer falls below 20 seconds, giving us 30 extra seconds if destroyed. The shorts I posted show the UFOs destroyed in quick succession. I'm not expecting to be as quick during this playthrough. If one was missed, there's plenty of time to come back for it and get the time stone, which is all I'm aiming to do here, and we've already got our first time stone. When I first played this game, I didn't read the instruction manual, so whenever I time warped, I thought, the future is terrible, what am I supposed to do with this time gimmick? Why is the game designed this way? After reading the manual, I realised there are 2 possible futures. When we get the robot transporter, we'll travel to the good future. The time warp mechanic does make both possible endings more impactful than Sonic's 1, 2 and 3, because we see how the planet's future pans out while playing the game in each stage instead of just seeing it at the end. It also plays on counterfactual thinking, where past events could have been done differently and how they could have turned out, and how to learn from these events. In this game we can actually alter the past events to see how they turn out in the future, and what has turned out here is the level becoming a golden landscape where the animals and flora are visible. This is a concept I'd be excited to see in future games. In Ratchet & Clank: A Crack in Time on PS3, they did something similar with one of the game's subplots. Spoilers, but the heroes are in a war-torn valley with ruins everywhere. A hermit survivor explains a battle that took place 10 years ago where they lost to the invaders. A rift was nearby, allowing a portal to open where the heroes could fight in the battle and defeat the invaders. They returned to the present and the ruins became a village where the inhabitants lived peacefully, with the battle remembered as a shining victory. I'll link the video below. But we have just got our second time stone. So we're approaching Act 3 now. When Act 1 and 2 have good futures, Act 3 becomes a good future as well. Otherwise it's a bad one. Act 3 is where we fight Robotnik, and this level in particular can be wrapped up in 30 seconds. And this is probably one of the worst boss fights there is. Even when facing it directly, it eventually stops working properly and breaks easily. The remaining boss fights are not good in my view, except for one. I'll come to that when we reach it, but in the meantime, finishing within 30 seconds gives us 50,000 points, which is also worth an extra life. We've moved on to Collision Chaos, a amusement park with many springs, bumps and ramps, making it one of the easiest stages to warp. This is merely a cutscene that we saw before. We couldn't do anything to save Amy from being kidnapped. She's a hedgehog who has an infatuation with Sonic. This is exasperated from the adventure games, but eventually grows out of it in more recent games. My first time here, I ran into that wall of spikes before Metal Sonic came out of it and got a game over. Metal Sonic is a robot created by Robotnik for the purpose of surpassing Sonic. His abilities can mirror Sonic's, which would make it more threatening if it wasn't for plot armor. This is accurately shown in a Dorkly parody of Dr. Robotnik having an assistant, which is pretty funny. I've also linked that below. I don't want to ruin it by explaining it. So what I plan to do is, once the transporter is gone, I'll try warping and finishing in the future. But if I need to backtrack a long way, or take too long to find a post, I'll just move on. But we've made it to the good future, and we've got 50 rings, so I just need to hold on to them. That is embarrassing. But lucky for us, we've got to find 22 rings. While there are no enemies to worry about, there's still plenty of hazards. I would have thought there'd be more rings around here. Rings to go. Actually, if I go down there, I'd wind up finishing the level, so there's one more ring to get. At this point, this is getting a bit frustrating at this point, but the music is helping. We've got the ring, and we can move on. This special stage is probably the most forgetful in my view. It's because of those 3 UFOs that can be removed on the board in one straight path. Okay, so we fumbled that last one, but it's only one UFO left to focus on, and there's plenty of time left. Hopefully in this act I don't have a ring shortage. I'll aim to go through the top passage, even though there is a risk of taking damage by a spike. That's okay though. There's a sign that will take us to the past and further along. We can walk to the past straight away. What's even better is the transporter is just up ahead. There's also two ways of completing this act. There's the top part that contains more rings. It does require a bit more traversing. So we go through the tunnel here and get on top of this thing. I don't know what to call it. I'll call it a rotisserie. So I've got to aim for the top of this rotisserie. Nah, I've got my rings anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on it. So we'll wrap up this act and go to the next special stage. This is the last of the special stages that I would consider to be easy, because this is the last of them where the UFOs move slowly. They will start speeding up in the last 3 rounds. With 80 seconds to spare, I feel comfortable with that last UFO. We've reached the boss, which I'd say is an improvement over Palmtree Panic. but it can still be completed in 30 seconds, although it depends on a mix of accuracy and luck. The projectiles shooting at us can really throw my shot, and I've already been hit twice. But we've got a 10,000 point time bonus. And an extra life. We'll move on to Tidal Tempest. It's a underwater level which bears the same resemblance of Labyrinth in Sonic 1, giving me a sense of dread in my first playthrough, as Labyrinth is also slow due to the long underwater paths. It's not so bad here, however, because the underwater parts are not too long, and it's easy to find ways to reach the surface again. Generally, underwaters are not something I mind very much if done well. One way is making sure the underwater parts provide enough ways to keep breathing and reach the surface, like Tidal Tempest and Hydro City in Sonic 3, or like Aquatic Ruin and Seaside Hill Act 1 Sonic Generations and Sonic 2, where the top layer has tricky platforms above the surface, with a bottom layer to penalise the player for making mistakes, but as a reward for a more fun experience if they overcome the obstacles. So luckily the transporter is not too far away. And we've got our 50 rings, and the transporter is just between this pipeline. And as long as we don't take damage, we can move on. As mentioned before, the remaining special stages are harder because of faster UFOs. It's no longer advisable to aim for them directly, but instead intercept their flight path as they come towards us. The pressure is there is a limited amount of time, 6 UFOs, water, and the fact that Sonic can't stop running until we are finished. We are finished. Whenever I do play Sonic CD, I like to have the time stones by the time I reach the 4th stage. And the last special stages often caused me to reset the game if I failed, and couldn't reset the level fast enough. I didn't want to be doing multiple attempts when recording this playthrough, so I went to the time attack mode, practiced stages 5 to 7 until I could finish them within 25 seconds. It was a lot more fun than I thought, so I did the same with stages 1 to 4 and recorded them. I was having a bad day at the time, and getting those done helped me feel a bit better. We'll get back to this now though. We will travel into the past. Have some water. Given the amount of water, warping is still easy, but there's a limited amount of spots to do this. That's why I prefer warping only once. That projector we saw before was a hologram of Metal Sonic oppressing an animal. It doesn't have any influence on the future, but if you destroy 12 of them with 14 transporters, you get an achievement. But I'm just focusing on getting the time stones and getting the good ending. They're all very easy to find anyway. The stage took the longest time to get right because of the jumps needed to be set at very tight, and the turns are sharper and easier to get around, and the slightest mistiming risks the UFO moving back and forth in the centre not being where I need it to be to get caught. But we did get it. We'll go back to the UFO by the water. I'm actually happy with that recovery. There's one more time stone to go. A good future Untitled Tempest is basically a pink aquarium. It does make perfect sense since the stage is water themed. I did forget to mention that the default water level does change based on the timeline, being the lowest in the past to the highest in the future. We've done phase 1 of the fight, and we'll be moving to the second phase, which makes even less sense. So Robotnik is protected by bubbles, but the flaw is that the bubbles prevent Sonic from drowning, and is not needed. If Robotnik remains out of reach, which he does not, then he would have won, but we need plot armor, I suppose. It does make me question if he does have an IQ of 300. But we've made it to the 4th stage. So basically this is an underground mine thing. Only the way I like the USA soundtrack over the Japanese. The gimmicks are conveyor belts accompanied by cheap enemy and spike placement with other environmental hazards. Once we finish this level, we'll aim for the last time stone. Most classic games have their Chaos Emeralds in special stages. Time stones are an anomaly exclusive to this game only, and in my view better than the Chaos Emeralds and mainstream games. In the classic games, they have the ability to enable a super transformation to the user, allowing faster movement speed and invincibility. In modern games, their properties become more complex depending on what they need to do for the sake of the plot, as the Theobald commonly describes as being able to convert the user's thoughts into power. Examples are freezing time, teleportation, unlimited power supply to machinery, even time travel itself. They're basically a version of the Infinity Stones in the Marvel universe. We'll finish this level first, then I'll go over the time stones in Act 2. As special stages go, this one was not too bad after practicing for a while. It's just aiming for the first UFO we see and then rotating anti-clockwise around the board until we're finished. One more to go. And we've got all the time stones. So, back to my earlier point, collecting the last time stone removes all remaining robot transporters in the game, changing the default future from bad to good for the rest of the game. At first glance, this is basic, but after thinking about it for a while, the transporters in the past were destroyed out of thin air, while we as the wielders did not need to travel to the past ourselves, meaning the time stone's power allows free manipulation of time on at least a global scale. The circle that I'm trying to square is that if I was going to be attacked by someone under the Chaos Emerald's influence, it may be possible to use the time stones to foresee the threat and change history, preventing the attack in no time. And that's my reason for ranking the time stones as superior to the Chaos Emeralds. We've reached Act 3. And this is another strange boss that's coming up. It is the egg conveyor. It's a giant piston that is under constant friction under that conveyor belt. Eventually it's going to wear itself down. We just have to focus on running along the conveyor belt until it destroys itself. This is probably the second boss that... Anyway. I'll end the video here, but I'll link part 2 in the description where we'll be moving to Wacky Workbench. See you there.